in the Zoom comments. Or Sarah, if you have some ideas, you can shout them out as well. What do you think? What do you think? Well, I can't hear anything, but I'll tell you, this is from a big tree that got torn out of the ground, and it got ripped out, and it left this gap here, and this is our vernal pool. It's our vernal pool. Vernal pools are really important habitats for a couple of different types of animals called vernal pool obligate species. It's a big word, obligate species. But what that means is that it's a type of animal that can only live in a vernal pool. We're talking about spotted salamanders, Jefferson salamanders, marble-headed salamanders, fairy shrimp. They're freshwater shrimp that live only in vernal pools. And they're amazing. They can lay their eggs and they can spend up to years without touching water. But once it rains on them or snow melts and it starts to fill up their vernal pool, they hatch, which I think is just the coolest thing. So maybe we're going to find some interesting things today. And let's do a little bit of digging. Let's see what we find. Let's see here. Oh, it's going to get a big old scoop into this net. Let's dump it out and see what we can find. And Wendy, if I find anything, I'll take a couple steps back so you can come and check it out too. Let's see here. Let's see. And if you're looking, while I look around in here, oh, there's something. What do you notice is the main ingredient in these vernal pools? What did I pull up more than anything? I'm touching them right now. What did I pull up more than anything? Any ideas? Sarah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Ah, there you are. Well, what I'm pulling up out of this are mostly dead leaves. And those we'll talk about in just a sec, but look at what Wendy's pointing at right there. Do you guys see that? Right there on that leaf? It looks like that's gonna hatch out of that kind of larval stage where it's a little larvae and maybe grow into some sort of fly or insect that lives on the bottom of those vernal pools. And that's the kind of stuff that spotted salamanders, they're really unique. They're salamanders covered in bright green and yellow spots. That's the kind of stuff that they love to eat. Let's see what else is in this pile of leaves. These leaves are really important because if you look above us, Wendy, what do you see up there?
Huge trees that would have dropped all those leaves.
Yeah, exactly. Huge trees that would have dropped all these leaves into that vernal pool. And those leaves are going to be eaten by little bugs like that. And they're going to slowly get torn apart into smaller and smaller pieces. And they're feeding all the little critters. And then those little critters are going to feed the bigger stuff, like those salamanders that we were talking about. And maybe frogs later on that will come in and chow down on all those insects. Let's see if there's anything else we can find in these leaves before I take another scoop. Let's see here. And it smells really interesting. It's kind of gross. Imagine, have you ever walked by like a dumpster that has rotting food in it? Or have you ever been close to like a marsh by the beach where there's a lot of muck and mud? What's happening is all these organic matters, these plants like these leaves, or maybe small animals, have died and they're inside that water and they're breaking down. They're starting to decompose, and that smells really bad. It smells kind of mucky and yucky. Let's see. That's a rock. Ideally, the coolest thing we could find, I think, is if we found some salamander eggs. They're kind of globular. They're almost like pudding feeling, but they're these little balls. And if we find any of those, that'd be amazing. But really anything that we can find in here is a treat. Let's see. Oh man, that smells gnarly. Let's see if there's anything else in this pile. Vernal pools grow all. Oh, look at this. What is that? Oh, no, just a piece of sand. I thought it was an egg. Vernal pools are all over Massachusetts, but there's also all other sorts of wetlands that we can go explore in just a minute or two. Let's see what we can find in here. There's a lot of little bits and pieces. It's easy to be tricked by. And I'd love to see what they turn out to be. Well, this is really interesting. And Wendy, you might be able to see it if you zoom in really close. Right on the end of that, in the middle of that leaf, do you see those little dots? Oops, sorry, just bonked you in with a stick. Do you see those little dots right there? You might not believe it, but those are freshwater snails that are attached to that leaf, really little ones. And I just tried to pull one off, and I end up just breaking the leaf because it was attached so tightly, and it was chowing down on that dead leaf matter. Well, let's take all this stuff and put it back in there so we can keep feeding the critters. I'll go up inside that vernal pool.
Hey, Will, while you're doing that, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's your question, Sarah?
I've heard of a snail, but I don't really remember what they are. What do they look like if they're big?
Oh, that's a really good question. What's a way to describe what a snail looks like? Well, snails have a shell. If you go to the ocean, you'll find different types of shells, and you might have seen a snail shell before. They're usually kind of round. And imagine the snail's body is this kind of gloopy. It looks like a slug or a worm that kind of protrudes. It sticks out of the shell. And then the shell is usually spiraled. That means it has circles on it. So if you find one, maybe we'll find a big enough one that we can look at it and see inside of it. You'll find the shell, it's kind of this open hollow, which means there's a bunch of space inside of it. Little shell. They're really rounded and unique. And you'll find snails all over the place. You'll find snails in water here. If you have a garden, you'll find snails in your garden. Really, anywhere you'd find slugs. There are saltwater snails that you'll find at the beach. You can find all different types of snails. And some of them don't even grow in water. They live entirely on land. But what do you think? Should we go and check out another wetland over there and see what else we can find? All right, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a little adventure. This is kind of cool. Not wetland related, but you'll see something right here. What do you guys think this is? This right here was the inside, is kind of the middle of what a squirrel was eating right here. You guys have any ideas? And Sarah, you can throw out an idea if nobody's commenting. What do you think? A squirrel would have picked this up off the ground, carried it onto this boardwalk, and then just chowed down on it, tearing off all these little pieces from the middle of this maybe cone-shaped thing.
Is it an acorn? I know squirrels like to eat acorns.
Oh, that's a good guess. It's not an acorn. It's not an acorn. An acorn would be a lot smaller, and if we find one of those, I'll show it to you for comparison. This was a pine cone. Oh, yeah. Here, you can put it right there. That's awesome. Look at that. That's an acorn right there. And that's a lot smaller. So an acorn is just one single hard nut. But this was a pine cone that a squirrel carried up onto this bridge and just had a big meal out of. That's so cool. That's so cool. We're on this boardwalk, and we're going on a little journey through a very different kind of wetland. Remember, a vernal pool is a wetland. It's seasonal, usually small. It doesn't really have any other water flowing in or out of it. But this wetland here, it's dominated mostly by trees. If you look around, there's small shrubs and grasses. Do you have any guesses for what kind of wetland this could be, the one that we're looking at right now? What do you guys think? They're all over Massachusetts. They're beautiful. This one has a lot of algae in it too, which is interesting. This guy right here is a swamp. It's a swamp. And I grew up in Massachusetts. And there's a swamp behind my school. My friends and I would go into all the time, and we'd find painted turtles. Sometimes we'd find snapping turtles, which are a little bit more hazardous. But there's frogs and snakes and all sorts of amazing creatures out here. All of them are really pretty much harmless, and they're really cool places to explore. But oh man, look at this. She's a big one. I'm gonna see if I can catch this guy in my net. But you'll just see its eyes are poking out of the water right here. I don't know if there's a way to zoom in, but this is really interesting. It's a really, really big, probably a green frog. Let's see if I can catch it so we can check it out. Got him. Got him. Oh, man. All right, Wendy, I'm going to try and see if there's a way that we can observe this frog. I wish I brought a bucket. That's okay. Next time. Oh, jumping out, so you might only catch him for a sec. Here, I'm going to stand back. Can you look inside that net and see what I'm seeing? What do you see in there?
Shay, you want to pull him out?
That's an awesome find. Awesome find. Huge frog. And he's wily. I can see him bouncing around all over the inside of the net. Do you guys see that he's jumping? And these frogs are harmless. You can totally touch these. What do you think they might feel like? Shayla, Wendy, what do you guys think about frogs? Have you felt them before?
Slimy.
Shayla, that's really slimy. Really slimy. I think they're really cute too, but I agree they are super slimy, and that makes them really hard to hold. We won't keep them in here for too long, because imagine if you were a frog and you were inside this net. How would you be feeling? Kind of trapped and scared. So we're going to put them back soon. Oh man, that is awesome. And you know what? If you look at this frog, you'll see it's really big. It's really round. And that's a sign that it's probably about to go. Oh, there it goes! There it goes! If its belly is big and round, it's probably about to lay a bunch of eggs. Wow, that was awesome. Oh, that was so cool. Nice. Good find,
Well,
everybody.
I have a question. The frog was so cool.
Yeah, what's your question?
Are you going to take the frog home?
No, that's a really good point. So Sarah asked if I'm going to take the frog home. I wouldn't take the frog home. When I'm outside interacting with nature, sometimes it's really nice to put yourself in the shoes of the animals that you're seeing. That means kind of pretend what it might feel like to be that animal. And if you were a frog and this huge animal with 2 legs and 2 arms and a big net came and picked you up, it might be kind of scary. And even if I could take that frog home and I could build a good aquarium for it to live in with a fish tank and a bunch of algae and moss and water and feed it delicious little insects, it's not in its natural habitat. Its natural habitat, the place where it's from, is this swamp with all this water, all this life and activity, and other frogs to hang out with. So I'm not going to take it home as a pet, but that's a really good question, Sarah. Thank you for asking. We're going to leave it right here. But that was really exciting. Let's see what else we can find. There's one really cool thing that lives in wetlands. It's not an animal, it's a plant, and it's right here. This is called a skunk cabbage. And it's pretty easy to figure out why it's called a skunk cabbage, because when you're up close and personal with it, and you get in right by it and you smell it, it smells just like a skunk. It's really the strong smell right in your nose, and it's not that bad, but it's intense. If you ever are driving on the road or you're walking down the sidewalk and you smell something that's really bad, it might be a skunk. They're a really particular smell, and this skunk cabbage smells just like a skunk. But I just think that's really a neat thing to find. But let's see what other critters we can find in here. Let's see. What sorts of wildlife are in here? Yeah, it's a hard time to find eggs. You know, the best times to come out here is at night. If you have a chance in the springtime on a warm, oh, that's just a cool bug. Let's see if we can find this guy. You know, I don't know if you can see it. It's a water skimmer right here. It's on top of the water. Do you think people can see that, Wendy?
I'm not sure.
I wonder if I could catch it in my hand would be the best. Oh, he's fast. Water skimmers are insects that live on the top of the water. I'm just going to leave him be because I think even if we do catch him, we might not be able to see him in here.
It's kind of transparent.
Yeah, and he's really small. The best time to be out here is at night. Imagine it's dark, there's a full moon overhead. It's a little rainy, a little misty and rainy, but it's springtime and it's starting to get warm outside. That's the best time, a warm, rainy spring night. If you come out to a wetland like this, you'll see maybe thousands of unique creatures, green frogs, bullfrogs. You might even see gray tree frogs that live on the trees around here, spotted salamanders, all sorts of interesting animals that are sometimes nocturnal. Do you know what nocturnal means? What do you guys think? What do you think about nocturnal? An owl is a nocturnal animal. What else is nocturnal? Raccoons, possums are nocturnal animals. And a nocturnal animal means they only come out at night. So a lot of the creatures that we're looking for, they might be active during the day, but you're not really likely to see them unless you dig them up out of the bottom of the pond. I'm going to go around. Actually, no, I'm going to go under. What was that, Shayla? Shayla said there's a whole lot of algae over here. Let's see if we can check that out. Can you see what we're looking at? This floating green stuff here. So algae loves to grow in swamps and wetlands because if there's moving water, like on a river where the water is flowing from one place to the next, algae does not grow well, but it thrives in environments like this. And it's great food for the critters we were talking about, like salamanders and frogs. They love to eat algae. And it's also good for the environment. Algae takes CO2 out of the atmosphere. This is a big topic, maybe for a whole other video. But it helps clean the air. It helps clean the air, just like trees. I'm caught up in this. Let's see if we can get some algae up onto this. Oh man, that is super weird. Oh, that is super yucky. That is a funny feeling on your hands. It is so slimy. Wow, that's amazing. That is so cool.
What does look like slime?
It is super slimy. Wendy, if you back up, I'm going to touch it again. If you make slime in school or feel this kind of, maybe it's almost like if you make Play-Doh before it gets too thick. It's really slimy. It doesn't stick to stuff. It's not sticking to my hands, but it is really soft and kind of slimy. And a lot of these things, people might come outside and they're like, oh, that's gross. Oh, this mud is super gross. But all these things contribute to the ecosystem. And the ecosystem, if you don't know, it's all the plants and animals interacting together in this one place. So that includes the algae and the skunk cabbage and that big frog we found. All of those things help feed each other. They help each other grow. And they're all really important. So what might seem gross to us sometimes is actually maybe the most important parts of the environment. And it should all be respected and appreciated. Let's see if we can find another frog. That's what I want to do. Let's see here. Man, I could go frog hunting all day. This is a great gig. Look at this. Let's see. Do you see anything, Wendy? What do you think?
No, I don't see anything there, but I see these really cool little moss pieces over here that look different than other moss I've seen.
How do they look different from moss you've seen?
They look like trees.
Those are beautiful.
See how gorgeous they are?
They're so green.
I know.
They're kind of soft. Fluffy almost, but they're a little wet from the rain. I wish you could feel it. It's very damp. They're very delicate, so I don't want to hurt it by pulling on it. but they're so soft. And if I push my finger in, it's like a deep, deep bed made out of these plants. That is so cool. It makes me wonder how that moss is different from the kind of moss that we see on these rocks out here, or how it's similar. This is a little bit harder to see probably for you guys, but this is a little bit drier. It doesn't jut out quite in the same way as that. It's not quite like individual trees. This is more like a small forest where everything is tight knit together and close packed. But that feels really good. But it's drier, which is interesting because it's right in the middle of the swamp. You'd think it'd be really wet. Why don't we take a big scoop off the bottom here and see what we can find in our net? Let's see. Oh, I'm going to bring this right over here onto this boardwalk. Oh, interesting. It looks like another squirrel was eating an acorn here. What's the inside of one of those acorns we were, oh, dropped it. Inside of one of the acorns we were looking at. Yeah, it is like a buffet. Ooh, man, this is different from before. What do you notice about the difference from before? Is there more leaves or less leaves? Is there more dirt or less dirt? What do you guys think? I'm gonna put my fingers right in here and see what I can find. Oh, here's something. Oh, no way! Cool! This, hard to see, this is a fairy shrimp. Let me see if I can get it right on that. Let's see where it went. Is it underneath this? Or is it inside? Oh, it's inside of it. Let's see here. There's a small little insect right on the end of the sleeve. You're gonna have to get real close up to it. That is a fairy shrimp. These tiny, tiny, tiny. Yeah, it's that little white thing. And it was wiggling around just a second ago. Believe it or not, it's hard to put that into perspective about how small it is. It's maybe like, you could probably fit 10 of those in your pinky nail. They're so small. And that is a freshwater shrimp that lives in wetlands around here. That is amazing. I've been wanting to see one of those all year, and I haven't. That's the first time. That's super rad. That's really, really exciting.
It was moving.
It's moving?
It was looking like it's going to go hard.
I'm going to put him back in the water because I don't want to stay out here too long. Let's see here. There we go. Let's see what else is in here. Dude, it's amazing. You think what you just have is a big pile of mud and leaves, and it's full of life. And I'm sure there's so much stuff that we're missing.
Hey, Will, you got a shout out.
What's my shout out from?
Hi from Miss Lisa from Woodrow Wilson Elementary School in Framingham.
Hey, Miss Lisa, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. We just found something else that you're going to think is really interesting. It's not a snail. You'll see way bigger versions of these in the ocean. But this is a freshwater one living right here in a swamp in our backyard. Check it out. I'm going to see if you guys can tell me what this is. It's right there. It's right there. Miss Lisa might know too. What do you think? It's a freshwater thing, but you might find bigger versions in the ocean, and they have shells. What do you guys think? Can you see that? Cool find. All right. Well, I guess no, that's a freshwater clam. It's a fresh. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. Like, who would have thought? That's beautiful. I know, it's so tiny. I want to keep it because it's darn cute, but I gotta put it back. Because like we said before, this is their natural habitat. They're gonna live in here and thrive. We want to disturb that. Let's see what else we can find in here. So I'm gonna do a couple last digs, and then maybe if there are any questions, you can ask what we can find. So if you're tuning in, we're looking in swamp. You can find different types of wildlife that are native to here, and they're really important little critters. Let's see, it's getting really gross in here. I'm just gonna do it. Why not, you know?
It's okay to get muddy.
It is okay to get muddy. We're washing our hands so much these days anyways. I might as well get them really muddy first. Let's see. That was amazing. I can't believe we found one. That's so cool. So far we found a green frog, a really big one, probably about to lay maybe hundreds of eggs in a little clumpy bag. We found a fairy shrimp, a freshwater shrimp, and we found a tiny, teensy tiny freshwater clam. Let's see what else is in here. Man, freshwater clams are so neat. That makes me think about what it would be like to grow up in the woods, you know, and what you'd find to eat that people might not think about. Well, I might put this whole clump of stuff back and then see if we can do one more last scoop before we sign off for the day. Oh yeah, look at all that. That's intense. Okay, let's see what we can find back here. I'm gonna really quickly just wait to see if there are any bubbles that pop up, because if there are bubbles coming up out of the water, that tells us that there's something breathing under the water. It'd be cool to find a little critter. Let's see here. Maybe in our last minute, go back to where we were earlier in those grasses. I am just, imagine if you were a frog in here. There's just this giant human just leaving a path of destruction through your home. But I don't think they mind too much. It's also one thing about the nice soft ground underneath my feet. It's really mucky and muddy. Is if I step on anything, it'll just squish into the mud and it'll be okay. Let's see, I'm just gonna do one big old scoop in this area here. And what was interesting about finding the frog with a bunch of eggs in its belly, it means that that frog hasn't laid the eggs yet. And you know, maybe a better time, or a different time, to come out here would be in a week or two. And there might be a bunch of frog eggs or tadpoles swimming around a particular swamp. Let's see here. Here's something similar to what we found in the vernal pool earlier. It's hard to see because it's so muddy, but that is another larva, maybe of a caddisfly, which hatch out here, and fish love caddisflies. Here's another freshwater clamshell. Look at that. Tiniest little guy right there. Wow. I got one that's mostly just mud, it looks like, inside this area. Oh! What is that? See if I can get that guy back out again. Come here, you. All right, there. I don't know quite what it is, but it seems like it's some sort of worm. It's hard to see because it's mostly muddy, but you might see a little bit of red around the edges. Well, on that, we're out of time. So I'm going to scooch all this stuff back into that swamp. And we're just going to let it go back to where it came from. Before we say bye, is there any last questions anybody might have about vernal pools or swamps or wetlands around here? The animals we might find? What do you guys think? I'm going to wipe my hand off on this tree. Try and get some of that mud off. Nothing? Okay, well, thanks for tuning in. And if you want to watch this video again later, feel free to go to our Facebook page. It's Farrington Nature Link. Hit the like button, and you'll find it uploaded right there. And hopefully soon, maybe on the YouTube. That's fun, though. We found a lot of cool stuff. I learned things about the wetlands here at Farrington, and I hope you guys learned some interesting things about vernal pools and swamps. Amazing stuff that's all over Massachusetts. If you're tuning in from Somerville or Cambridge, I recommend going to Danny Park if you have a chance. There's a wetland there, and it's home to snakes, turtles, ducks, and probably a whole bunch of the stuff that we just found in here right near you. So thanks for tuning in. Yeah, thanks everybody.